Hello listeners, and welcome to Plugged In, the energy news podcast from Montel. Each week we bring you in-depth analysis and insights from across the energy sector. This week we focus on one of the world's largest power producers, Uniper, based in Düsseldorf. With core markets in Germany, the UK, Sweden and the Netherlands, and a reach into more than 40 countries, this is a global power player. But it's faced massive challenges in recent years. It was Europe's biggest importer of Russian gas prior to the Ukraine invasion. This highlighted Germany's reliance on Moscow as the country imported more than half its gas from Russia. Putin's decision to cut gas supplies to Europe pushed Uniper to the brink of collapse. €13.5 billion bailout by the government saw it nationalised in one of the biggest corporate bailouts in German history. But the firm has quickly recovered. Setting the scene for us this week is Katharina Johannsen, who's Montel Berlin correspondent. Katharina, warm welcome to you. There's quite an important election coming up. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that looks set to shape energy policy in Germany over the coming years?
Hi, Richard. Lovely to be here again. Yeah, so we have quite the important elections, federal elections, in actually just 1.5 weeks. So this is the hot phase of the election campaign. Since the last time we spoke, some things in the election campaigns actually changed because there was a knife attack in a city called Aschaffenburg. And since then, we have spoken a lot about migration, and regarding energy and climate topics, these things sort of went back to the background. There was still some paper issued by the CDU, the party that is leading the polls, where they said these kind of things we want to immediately change after we come into power. And one of these things was that they said they want to lower electricity prices by 5 cents per kilowatt hour for everyone, so not only industry but also households. And other than that, we haven't really discussed climate issues at all. Big difference towards last election campaigns. And also the topic of energy has been a bit to the background. The Bundestag, the parliament, has issued some laws just like 1 or 2 weeks ago regarding energy. But that's so far what has changed.
So it's come off the political agenda, if you like, the energy issue. But energy prices are still there, aren't they? They're still quite important for the population at large.
Absolutely. I think at the moment we mostly talk about electricity prices, less so gas prices. But it is a huge issue for the economy, obviously, because we've been struggling a bit. There's been like 3 years of recession in a row, and electricity prices or overall energy prices do play a big role in that. And also households are worried about the energy costs, but also about the renovations that are necessary for moving going from gas heating towards maybe more heat power, like heat pumps. So that is more on the agenda, but less so the gas prices for households.
Katharina, thank you very much indeed. You've set the scene perfectly and provide us with a background in which Uniper finds itself, which we're now going to be talking to Uniper next. Thank you. I met up with Holger Kreetz, Uniper's Chief Operating Officer at the eWorld Trade Fair in Essen. A warm welcome to you, Holger.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Perfect. There's quite an important election looming in Germany, isn't there? I mean, we're on the 23rd of February. So how could that shape Germany's energy future, do you see, Holger?
Election is actually, yes, on the 23rd of February. It's an important election. We have many topics in the energy market that are very important now to get fully implemented. We are in Germany, we are on a journey to transform the energy system to deliver the so-called Energiewende. And in the last couple of years, lots of progress was made in delivering lots of wind farms and particularly also PV, strong growth in those areas. At the same time, we had to replace the Russian gas that was coming into Europe with, for example, LNG terminals that we built in record speed. And now the new government will need to pick up on a couple of topics to continue this journey, get the get the grids up and running in Germany, make sure that the hydrogen economy is being continued to be built up, and also develop a capacity market for the German system to do without coal.
Absolutely. I mean, I probably want to touch on each of those subjects a bit later, Holger, but if we can go, I mean, the Energiewende in Germany, or the energy transition, how is that progressing? I mean, has it been sort of stuttering a bit or going a bit slowly, or is it still full speed ahead? And do you expect the new government to proceed with in the same kind of way?
I think you probably, again, you need to go through the various chapters there. If we start with the build out of renewables, onshore wind, offshore wind, solar PV, that has been, I think, particularly speedy in the last couple of years. The permitting procedures have been made much more effective and much faster. A lot of bureaucracy was cut out the system, and really lots of new wind farms and lots of PV plants are coming into the system, so that's going very well. The grid connections that now brings the energy from the areas where the new renewable assets are being constructed to bring them to to the customers. That is in progress. This is important that even more focus will be put on that one going forward. But that's happening as well. And then also first really good steps have been made in the build out of the hydrogen economy. For example, Germany has last year decided on building more than 9,000 kilometers of core grid for hydrogen, partly from gas grid, partly new build. So an investment more than 20 billion euro to go into this hydrogen grid. So lots of progress on that one. And now, obviously, new infrastructure investments are needed on the storage side, on the import terminal side. And so therefore, I would say, we've been doing very good progress over the last years, but still lots of things in front of us.
Absolutely. I mean, that hydrogen plans you mentioned, that's a final investment decision that's already in place there?
For the infrastructure, there's on a lot of the assets, there's final investment decisions. There is the regulation, the so-called amortization accounts is in place. So therefore, the investments can go ahead. But now it is also important to connect this infrastructure to newly to be built infrastructure on storage, so hydrogen storage, to connect it to the grid. And then also get the generation projects up and running, so the hydrogen production projects up and running, so that we can fill the grid and bring the molecules to the customers. And then the customers need to procure, to buy the molecules at the end. So therefore, still some way to go.
Absolutely. And hydrogen, we've seen in recent years a lot of projects being cancelled or postponed. Is it a bit of a tough time for the hydrogen industry? Because did people underestimate the costs or the use cases for hydrogen, do you think, Holger?
Again, in hydrogen, very good progress has been made on the infrastructure, so on the grid. And now some pragmatism is needed in the market to deliver the hydrogen, the green hydrogen, as cheap as possible, and therefore we speak of different colors in the hydrogen business: blue hydrogen, green hydrogen. And if we are much more pragmatic on the regulation to also accept blue hydrogen for some time, I'm sure also that the prices will significantly go down, and it is much more affordable than for our end customers, to go from either from gray hydrogen directly to green or blue hydrogen, or to replace their fossil fuel with green hydrogen if industry needs.
Can you just remind the listeners what the difference is on the colours?
Sure.
So green is purely 100% renewable, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So green hydrogen is you use a renewable source of electricity to produce in electrolysis to produce the hydrogen. Blue hydrogen, you use a conventional way of producing hydrogen, and you use the carbon that is emitted in this process, and you you put the carbon underground in storage, so some kind of carbon capture storage system is connected to that. But also this hydrogen at the end is very low CO2 amount, so therefore considered also as a very positive one.
Oh, no, absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. I think we've also, Germany has closed its nuclear plants. It's looking to exit from coal. But there is a big need to build new capacity in the country, isn't there? I mean, and the German government has its power plant strategy. What's the latest there, Holger?
Well, before the German government broke, there was so-called Kraftwerkssicherungsgesetz. So this is a power plant strategy, a piece of law that had the intent to bring in new capacity, about 10 gigawatt of new capacity into the market in the next couple of years through auction systems, partly security of supply kind of gas assets, partly already hydrogen-ready gas assets that have then a clear path to carbon neutrality. The existing government that will now, where we now have the election, was not able to conclude that law. So therefore, it is up to the new government, to conclude it and to find a law that really starts finding solutions for capacity market then in Germany. So in Germany, we don't have a capacity market at this point, and we have lots of opportunity to learn from countries like France and Belgium and the United Kingdom, where capacity markets are up and running since so many years. And therefore, some stealing with pride there could be helpful to get it implemented faster.
Absolutely. But capacity markets, I've been in this business for quite a number of years, as you have as well, Holger. And it has in the past been quite controversial, but you think Germany really requires one now?
I think it's a capacity market is important to have the right incentive to build capacity that has then the ability to replace coal. I think if we're serious with battling climate change, we need to replace coal from the system. As from the UK, in the UK we have been running a coal-fired power plant, Ratcliffe, and in last October we were actually closing that power plant, and it was the last coal-fired power plant in the UK to go, after 142 years of coal-fired generation in the portfolio of the United Kingdom system. And it was the capacity market that was introduced 10 years ago that really made that possible. And it's the first big industrial nation that does without coal. And I think Germany needs to go the same route, and with a capacity market, we will be able to go there fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think, some people shed a tear when Ratcliffe was closed, but other people maybe celebrated the end of the coal and looking to a greener future. But can you run gas-fired plants in Germany, you've got Irsching, for example. Is the capacity market the best way to incentivize a new build of gas-fired plants? Can they exist in the market as is without the capacity market?
Well, maybe one comment on Ratcliffe before we proceed with your question. Obviously, we were also shedding some tears. Our teams, they did a fabulous job over the last decades to really keep it up and running and provide security of supply to so many customers and the whole region. But things, it was a very important power station, and we were very proud to operate it. But it was time to move on, and everybody understood, that without coal, was replacing it with gas, and ultimately at some point with renewables or carbon capture storage. We are moving into a carbon friendlier world at the end. So therefore, the need was clear. But coming back to your question on the need for the capacity market, I do think it is needed. There is not sufficient incentive in the system for energy-only kind of assets to be built. You can see that in the market. You can observe, that there's not sufficient incentive. There are very little new capacities being built, and with a nuclear exit and the coal exit, both happening in Germany in the same decade, obviously there's need for a sufficient amount of capacity. More than 20 gigawatts need to be replaced in the next couple of years in Germany. And it's not happening without a capacity market.
Okay, and you think it can be built in 2 or 3 years with a capacity market? I mean, there's a huge amount of capacity that needs to come online to avoid a serious supply crunch further down the line, Holger?
Well, not in 2 to 3 years, but obviously, if the law gets on the way very soon, then there is a good chance that we get a sufficient amount of capacity in by the end of the decade, beginning of the new decade, and then over time, I think there's a fair chance that we get the 20 gigawatt implemented. We need to.
Yeah, absolutely, and if I can bring it back to Ratcliffe again, Holger.
Yeah. You like that one? Yeah.
Exactly. So that was switched off in October 24. The Colex in Germany. Did you see that happening by 2038 as well? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think it should be possible. I mean, 2038 is still a long way to go. With the capacity market coming, there's the opportunity to really replace these assets. There is lots of coal-fired power plants already going out the system. Together with Ratcliffe last year, we were exiting also from a coal-fired power plant called Heiden in the middle of Germany, and other assets, we're removing from the system. They are system critical, so we keep them in reserve, but we slowly take these assets out of the system.
And really important, you mentioned earlier as well, Holger, CCS, so carbon capture and storage. How feasible is that in Germany? I mean, it's been talked about for decades, and there are some projects where it's been successful or possible even, but how possible is that in Germany, in terms of, cleaning up both gas and coal generation? No one wants to live, the problem is, where do you put the carbon? Where do you sequester, where do you store it?
Well, I think first of all, on carbon capture storage, it's probably fair to acknowledge that the UK was really leading the way here. Very early on, they started to put this in regulation. They put auction systems in to incentivize for carbon capture storage systems as an integral part of decarbonizing the industry and the energy system. Whilst in Germany and in other European markets, there was more hesitance on doing that. I feel, particularly in the last 2-3 years, that also more pragmatism is coming into the discussion, and the understanding that a sustainable energy system is only possible if it is an affordable one, and therefore, I think it needs also pragmatic solutions, like accepting that carbon capture storage is part of the solution space. I see that mind shift happening in Germany over the last years. It will certainly take some time. This is not something that is done in a year or two. But I'm rather optimistic that at some point we will have carbon capture and storage and carbon capture and utilization both in the mix.
Central here, isn't it? That the focus is very much on, as you say, affordability, but also securing supply. I mean, and reducing dependence on other countries which may not always be so friendly. Which brings me on to my next question, really, Holger. I mean, Uniper has been on quite a roller coaster ride for the last few years. Could you describe some of that journey for me and for the listeners?
Yeah, maybe I start in 2016. In 2016, we were split as the generation and trading business of E.ON, and we were IPO'd, so we were brought to the market. Soon after, the Fortum Group from Finland acquired ultimately a majority share of Uniper. And we were then working together with Fortum to create one company. And then in 2022, in the middle of it, the Ukraine war started and Russia invaded the Ukraine, with all the impact on the European energy system. So more than half of the gas that was coming from to German customers were actually coming from Russia, and the majority of that was coming through Uniper. So we were the largest customer of Russian gas at that time, and so therefore in 2022 we still secured our customers with gas all the way through this crisis in 2022 when Russia stopped the gas flows. But this led to a financial crisis of the company, because we made up to 200 million euro losses per day in August in 2022. So it needed the German government to intervene and ultimately take over more than 99% of the shares of Uniper at the end of 2022. And they didn't solely do that to save Uniper, but it was also done to make sure that the energy system remains stable in Germany, because our customers are more than 500 municipalities and many bigger industrial groups that were, getting our gas. So therefore, the German government decided then to go in and to secure and save us, and was becoming the majority, more than 99% shareholder of Uniper. And then we recovered the year after. We managed to get out of the hole that we were in 2022 and released our new strategy in 23, made sure that we are really focused on transforming the company to a more sustainable company, to a greener company. And ever since, we are in the process of working on our strategy and transforming the company, and investing in the renewables business, investing in hydrogen and green molecule business, and investing in clean, flexible power.
So it's been quite a turnaround in a way, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's been for all of our employees and customers and stakeholders quite an exciting journey, to be honest.
Absolutely, from IPO to Fortum to being owned by the German state. I mean, that's quite a journey. Absolutely. And what does the future hold, Holger? I know there is talk of a sale, but what kind of is the outlook rosy for Uniper?
We are transforming the company, so we are delivering our strategy to make Uniper greener. We are planning to invest around 8 billion euro into making Uniper greener, into transforming the company until the beginning of the 2030s. In the three areas: clean dispatchable power, renewables, and green molecules. We do have an obligation or the German government, as our main shareholder, has the obligation from the European Commission to exit Uniper by the end of 2028, or exit at least the majority share, so down to 25%. And therefore, the government is currently seeking for the next chapter of our future.
Absolutely. So an interesting and fascinating journey awaits, I'm sure, Holger. But in terms of gas, obviously that plays a big part of Uniper, or has done, the gas business. What's the outlook for the next couple of years, do you think? Not just for Uniper, but more for Germany and Europe in terms of securing gas supply. What's the outlook there, Holger?
Yeah, I think physically Germany has worked on alternative supply system for gas. So from being very dependent from Russian gas to a situation where now there's different other elements, Norwegian gas coming through pipeline, but also LNG gas coming through the newly erected LNG import terminals. So therefore, I think our gas system is getting more and more secure and more stable, with the many gas storages that we have in Germany. And I believe that with the capacities that will need to be newly built, ultimately hydrogen based, but initially methane based. I think gas will have also in the next years quite a big role to play in the energy market in Germany.
But critics would say maybe that there's this means or this risks locking into a fossil fuel future. How would you counter that?
Well, at the moment, when you are building out the renewables business, which is happening at the moment at very significant speed in Germany. So particularly last years were really very successful in the build out of solar and wind. But you need to make sure that you have sufficient energy in the system also for the periods when there's no sun and no wind. And therefore, these assets, if they're not coming, they're not coming from the nuclear power plants because they are off the system. And if we don't want that energy to come from the coal-fired power plants, they need to initially come from gas-fired power plants that we then over time will be able to convert into green fuel power plants like hydrogen-ready or carbon capture storage connected power stations. So therefore, again, I do believe gas will play a role in the transition, but we always need to plan, for the period thereafter to make sure, that the hydrogen and carbon capture storage solutions find their way into the German energy system.
Yeah, that's important to keep that security of supply, but also, there is the affordability question here because CCS and hydrogen are not cheap at the moment, are they? They're not, so how do you apply those but still maintain, low cost?
Yeah, we need to find a balance of, what in the energy business we call the energy trilemma, where you have security of supply, you have affordability, and you have you have the environment or the climate as one of the criteria, and therefore I do believe we need to find our journey into the greener energy world in a more pragmatic way than what we're doing today. For example, when we're discussing to build a grid in the earth or above the surface of the earth, there's a big difference in cost. And if we are looking at hydrogen, you can have the blue hydrogen, you can have the gray hydrogen, you can have the green hydrogen or the blue hydrogen. It's a big difference in cost. You can import the molecules from renewable assets that are in very, very sunny and very, very windy areas of the world, or you can do it inside Europe. It's a big difference in cost. So therefore, when we are going onto this journey to decarbonization, you need to be very pragmatic from my perspective to really target the most affordable solutions.
Yep, makes absolute sense. In a previous podcast, we talked about a sort of wave of populism that seems to be sweeping across certain parts of Europe. Are you worried that there is a sort of backlash against the energy transition? Germany's been a leader in the energy transition for many years, many years. Is there now a feeling now that people have gone too far, too quick?
What people realize in Europe, and that's pretty healthy to realize this, is that there are certain ways to get to a greener society, to get to a greener energy system, and we need to be very pragmatic and we need to be very cost aware in finding our right path. And sometimes with the regulation that we have in place, both in Germany but also on the European level, we're creating unnecessary bureaucracy, we're creating unnecessary hurdles and barriers that make the whole system as such more expensive, and that makes it easier for people to criticize the system. So therefore, if we keep the focus on reducing these barriers, cutting the bureaucracy, making it as affordable as possible, I think it is very possible to continue on the journey to decarbonization.
It's very refreshing to finish on an optimistic note, Holger. So thank you very much indeed for being a guest on Plugged In, the Montel News podcast.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.